Welcome to How to Run Profitable Retreats podcast, the podcast that guides you not to only host retreats that thrive financially, but also transform people's lives. I'm your host, Lainey Cavazos, and each week I bring you the best strategies and personal insights to help you create retreat experiences that transform lives, both your clients and your own. In our journey together, we'll dive into the secrets behind successful retreats, from crafting a unique atmosphere to mastering the logistics that ensure profitability. Whether you're tuning in for inspiring interviews with leading retreat experts or seeking actionable advice in our solo episodes, this podcast is your go-to resource for turning your retreat visions into reality. Don't miss out on any of our episodes and subscribe now. For more tools and a free guide on creating your own six-figure retreat business, visit theretreatplanner.com. Now let's get started and make your retreat dreams come true. Hello there, welcome back to another episode of our podcast about running profitable retreats. And then today I have Jill McCarthy, who is going to be talking about some super exciting retreats. She's been planning retreats since 1997. Can you believe it? She is a retired elementary teacher. She is a mom of 4 adult sons, and she has a passion for helping women. And she started writing and organizing women retreats in 1997, as I just mentioned. It's insane. Like when I heard about this, I'm like, I have to interview her. Like it's so crazy. I've never met anyone who's been planning retreats for so many years. So I'm so excited to have her with her expertise and her knowledge. And she will be hosting one in May, and she hosts one retreat yearly. So at the end, she's going to share all her details. So you can check her out and join her. And she's also a podcaster. And she has a summit, and she's a summit inspirational speaker. Sorry about that. So she is just amazing. Like I could keep going on, but I'm so happy and glad to have her here today. And she also calls herself the Geeky Grandma. So let's see what she has to share with us today and what we can learn. Thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. What a nice introduction.
It's my pleasure. I'm so excited, as I mentioned, to have this conversation with you. So tell us a little bit about like these retreats in 1997. How did it started?
Well, so you said I was an elementary teacher really for my career, let's say. And about 10 years into the career, I found out I really didn't want to keep working with elementary kids. I know that sounds horrible, but I had done a little bit of adult ed, and I found, wow, I really like working with adults, and it became adult women because I grew up with all brothers and I have all sons, so my heart was hungry to be around some other women. And I wasn't able to switch out of my job, but to kind of keep myself entertained, I started doing retreats on the side. Now, at that point in my life, my kids were still home, my friends' kids were still home, and the people who were coming to the retreats, kids were still home. So we just wanted kind of a quick getaway that moms didn't have to be moms, that we tried to make it as little work and as easy as possible on everybody. In order to do that, we started at the end of their workday. So we would begin our retreats at supper time, kind of figured out when everybody got out of work, and we made it really simple meals. They weren't especially healthy at that point, but they were quick and easy. And I mean, like we do Friday night supper would be pizza and a tossed salad, so we made it easy. And at that point, when we had all those kids in school, you really didn't have a lot of cash flowing around. So we managed to make it so they were free if you brought three items of food. Why 3 items for food? I don't know, because that number popped out of my mouth when I needed a number. And amazingly, it always worked. Don't ask me why. And I would find one or two gals who would be willing to do the kitchen work for us. And our kitchen work was literally take it out of the refrigerator and set it on the counter, because we do continental breakfasts and sandwiches for lunch, and we'd put a little more effort into our supper time. But the supper time, we even made that fit the theme of our retreats. So we would sleep overnight in the church. Some people slept on pews, some people brought air mattresses or cots, and that way we didn't have hotels or accommodation costs. And it I woke up. I love digital computer graphics, and I like to monkey around with that stuff. And I knew how to make a brochure. And I woke up, I had read this book called The Art of the Fresh Start around the beginning of the year, a perfect January 1st kind of read. And I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I had a full 6 page, a trifold front and back, totally laid out in my head. Now, if you've ever laid one out and made them so they fold the right way and everything, that's a tough task. I had it totally in the whole design, the whole retreat designed out in my head. It was like a gift. And there it was. And I had the schedule, I knew the topic, I knew the menu, and I had it laid out so they could cut out the last page and sign their name and which items they were going to bring. And it also left them with a little list what to bring with them. And I fell in love with it. I lived for it. I mean, it was like the fastest thing I could touch on my computer to bring up that list of things. I'm a very tactile person, so I made the activities very hands-on. Now, because I was a second grade teacher, some of the things might have looked like second grade items, but actually the content was adult and was appropriate, but they were easy to manipulate and handle. And that style really fit some of my women who never had anybody present a lesson in that manner. And it just was a fun time. And I did them once a year. For a while I tried twice a year, but I couldn't handle much more than that, working full time and with kids and everything. But I longed for it. I looked for it. And then finally we got some people from other churches came in, and then they started inviting us back to their churches. And what happened is I missed doing it once a year. It was too long to wait to the next year. So I started a small women's group in our church, and I kind of groomed them to become my helpers at the next retreats. And I would help them find their gifts and their talents, and I would help to encourage them. I was being a grandma with a nudge even before I was a grandma, but I helped them to feel confident and help them to see what they were good at. And I let them practice in our small, safe group, so that when we had the next retreat, I'd put them inside in a small little workshop and give them some of the new guests to be
Mm.
their learners. And so it was always a growing cycle. And I did about 10 retreats during my career time. So
Wow, that's amazing. I love it. And I have to say, something that really came through to me was like, you did this all while having a full-time job and having kids to raise, and like not having like a huge budget to say, hey, I'm gonna go on a vacation and hire a nanny. So this is such an amazing thing to do, first of all. And second, it's a great idea for people who want to run retreats for moms. So many times we want to go for these long retreats, right? Like 7 days, 10 days. And if you're a mom, you might not be able to do it at the first time, or you won't give it the importance, like the weight of going on a
right.
retreat for 10 days. So, what about doing something that you can test that it's like an overnight? It's in the same town where you are, so you don't really have to travel. If your kids have an emergency, you can always, go back home and figure it out. And then you also get all the benefits of being on a retreat. And then
Yeah.
from there, what happens?
Well, from
You want to go
there,
to longer ones, right?
Yeah, that's what happened, and eventually, as we went to other retreats, then they would give us, like, a love offering, or if instead of bringing an item, they wanted to put in $5 towards pizza. We kinda grew with it as we grew, and, I wasn't able to a lot of younger gals these days, when they see some career isn't working for them, they jump to a new one, and I say more power to them. That wasn't my case. My case was best to stick with the job because I had a pension coming, and now I have the pension, so that can support me while I'm doing my online business, and it gives me a little safety net to keep growing with. And so I kind of moved away from doing them at churches. And once I got online, I had to develop a whole new audience. Because when I did it at a church, I had a built in audience. I had a built in pool of women to draw from. Yeah, I pulled a few more in, but online, I had to build in more people. So it took me a while to build in my online group. But finally, I got past that point, and I started doing lives on my Facebook group. I did like 88 lives just to get some practice in. Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
you got to start somewhere. Eventually that became my podcast, which I'm doing now. But back to the retreats. So I started to we have my husband and brother-in-law have a deer camp that's located on the water behind me in this picture. The picture is actually as if I'm sitting on the front porch and looking out.
Wow.
And so it's gorgeous. It's a back channel of a river, and we're on a corner lot, and the water comes to our left and it comes to our right, but it also goes straight in front of us. So it's like a Y, and it's a beautiful view. It's nice and quiet. If you don't mind a few deer heads on the wall, the women that have been there, they just find it really peaceful. And when we have good weather, they go out, and there's a few birds and things that fly around there, so they enjoy that part of it a lot. They don't mind the rustic. I tell them ahead of time so they know where they're coming for. And I started doing it, and the first time I only had one helper come. Okay, so I did my lesson with her. I'd hired her to do the food for me, and she was the only one with me. Well, that's okay. And then the next time, some of my old friends that had been to previous retreats started coming. It's a small place, so we can't do a huge group, but I like an intimate crowd, a little intimate group. And I really like to know the women and know what they're about and what their lives are about. And me being the geeky grandma, I had to add my tech in there somewhere, so I started having one of my speakers for the retreat was came in virtually through Zoom. And then last year I went to a hybrid retreat where not only some of the speakers came in, some of the participants came in through Zoom. So
Mhm.
we had they had the benefit, and because I'm kinesthetic and my part of the retreat, I do a lot of things with hands. I would mail them a box a week ahead of time so that when we were doing the activity, they already had their materials right there in front of them, and they could do it with us. And if they wanted to sit with us and eat while we were eating, they were welcome, or they could go take a little break and come back. And I ran all of that off of my phone. Do you remember that, where you can make it where that's your hot spot? I mean,
Yeah.
because the camp didn't even have internet, but I paid to have my phone do that. I didn't know how many people it would be able to hold, so I kept my numbers a little artificially small. But we had a lot of tech issues the first hour, but hey, you get through it, and it makes good stories. So that's what's happening. So this is the fifth on scene for the camp, and we're looking for a bigger place. I really want to start going on the road, going to events to fill me up, and then going to another event and pour me out. And
Right.
that's my heart's desire.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. So I've heard so many good things. So I'm gonna like put them out here for the audience. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, I'm thinking about your pamphlet. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I love it. It's so simple and it's so great. We forget about the power of simplicity, like rip the last page, and then you have all the information you need. Like, it's genius. I love it. I love it. I know these days we're really going into like digital everything. People are booking the retreats online, not really like in person. But keep it in mind, you never know if you are, like, I don't know, having an event. Maybe you want to create a piece of art. Like, I don't know, I love painting, right? So maybe you create a piece of art that they can take as a postcard, and then you do it in a way that they can rip it, and then they can write down their email and name if they want to hear more about your events, or you can have a QR code to join a WhatsApp group. Like, think outside the box, right?
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
bring in that.
We used to have it set up when we were doing it at the church. We had a few more people than I can do at the camp, and we'd create a 9 grid for the afternoon. It would be 3 hour slots, and you had 3 options in each hour. And that was one of the things on that tear off, that you tell me which one, if things you wanted to do. And we had a gal in our neighborhood who taught people how to paint very simple pictures. And if you wanted her, there was a small cost for that, big for her fees, but then you filled all 3 hours, and at the end of the retreat you had a finished
Painting.
painting that was
Mm.
yours to go home, and it looked really great because a professional was walking around. And that was one of our favorite events, and that a lot of people, we had a lot of people sign up for it. And if they wanted to spend their 3 hours doing one thing, that was fine. That means it was easier on book, on managing. But so we really like to use whatever talents the local people have. Like the one gal that I kept encouraging, she was a really great seamstress, and she liked to do quilting. She didn't even see that as a talent. But we eventually had her. She would have a small group at these retreats, and you do them some sample quilting things with them. And she made like a huge banner for the sanctuary. And even up on my wall here in my office, she had the girls put together a small quilt for me. She had each one in the retreat do one thing in the morning, and then the group did the quilting to learn the quilting part. And I have it on my wall, and it has their names on it, and it has what was important to them at that time. And that's a special thing. I I'm I'm a little more led by the heart, I guess, even than the pocketbook. I love these people. I love investing in their lives, and I love to watch them grow. And I've got one gal, I've done 15 retreats. I'm not sure. Last time I counted, she's been to 8 of them. But I've watched her grow over the years. When I first met her, she wanted to be a nurse, and she was in the middle of taking all of these units. She was doing like an online unit kind of thing to become a nurse. So she ended up sitting at a nurse at one of my workshops. I didn't plan that, but there she was, and they inspired each other. She became a nurse, and she got remarried, and her husband got sick, and then her husband died, and now she knows this time is hers to do things that she wants in her adult senior citizens homes. She's running mini workshops in the in the little rec rooms at there. And the training, it's hard to say what's credit to me or what isn't. I don't know, but she learned that she was important. She learned that her time and her skills was important. So this time when she's now, yeah, she's sad. She lost her husband, and who wouldn't be? But she's also been buoyed up along these years to know, hey, I count. I've got stuff to offer. My life isn't over, and I want to keep going. And it helped her transition through life. I like to
Uh,
touch lives.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm getting goosebumps all over my body. It's insane. And I have to say, this is like such a beautiful turn of our conversations. And I don't like to schedule or plan our like podcast episodes. It's like we have a conversation, we like, oh, maybe we talk about this, but then if it goes somewhere completely different, Oh my gosh, that's amazing, right? And this is exactly where we're going right now, and I am loving it. I do feel that this is so important, like to get people to feel important, that they matter, right? Like you matter. Like if you're listening to this, you matter. Like you're supposed to be doing something that fills up your soul. You're not supposed to be doing something just because you're supposed to be doing it. That's
Right.
that's done. That doesn't exist. It's not good anymore, right? So
No.
this is an invitation for anyone listening to this. Make sure that what you're doing makes you feel great, that makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, that you're fulfilling your heart, like, and you're not doing it just because someone else told you to do it. Go and follow your heart, right? And
Yeah.
because of this, I want to tell you this story, Jill, because I think it's so beautiful. I have a great aunt,
Uh-huh.
and she was like married to her husband for so many years. They raised three kids, like the kids are like super perfect, very extremely neat, maybe a little bit too much, you know what I mean? Like very perfect kids, like great scores in school, like everything, like, by the book. And she was like a stay-at-home mom, but at the same time she was like one doing the accounting for her husband's business, right? And so she was helping there, but and he was a very nice person, but he didn't give her any like value. For him it was like, well, this is a normal thing you're supposed to be doing, kind of thing, right? Like, right, like, oh, don't worry about that, right? Like kind of like dismissive in a way. Not He was not trying to be mean or anything like this,
No,
but
it was just
for
what way things were.
exactly, right? And then he got cancer. She really took care of him until the last day, right? And she was so nice to him and it was amazing. And then when he parted, surprise, surprise, she became a completely different person. Like she really found herself, like now she reads the newspaper and she likes to talk about the news and what's happening in the world, right? And before she would never do that. And she's such a positive person. Like I love seeing her because like every time I see her, and she's like 83 or 82 or something like that. And every time I see her, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you look so beautiful." Like she's so like all over the top, and she's always like, "Oh, you're so precious." And like she's so so nice. But also you can see how she like transformed
Right,
who
right.
she is into such a beautiful being of like freedom, right? She goes now to the beach with her friends from like middle school, right? And they all go to the beach for a week and they have holidays together, and I'm like, "Oh yes."
Yes, go for it, girl.
Exactly, right? So it's all about this purpose and this passion. And for example, I love that you retired, and you could have just retired, right?
Yep, I could have. I
And then
retired early for this.
you chose to like really embark yourself into this journey of something that really feels your soul. And now you don't have to be teaching classes or anything like to kids, and then you can really teach now to adults, and it's really what you wanted, right? So
Yeah.
it's amazing that you're really you're taking you to where you want to go. And then everyone else can get on the boat. I'm not saying like, oh, let's be selfish and just think about ourselves. It's just like if you become better, if you fulfill your purpose, what happens? Then everyone else is gonna feel it, and they want to join because it's such a beautiful and fulfilling thing to really know that you are doing what you love, right? Like I love traveling, and I'm like, I do at least one trip per year, like international, like at least, like right, like, and I'm doing less because like before I used to do one every 3 months, but now I'm like, okay, I'm setting I'm like working with the business. I need to be more present with this, right? So I'm like, okay, maybe not so much, but I'm like, I'm doing this, right? And for me, it's not even like a question anymore. It's not like, it's not a luxury to travel. For me, it's part of my lifestyle,
All
right?
right.
So bringing the things that really bring love into you and into what you're doing and making it a lifestyle, not a
Right.
sporadic thing, right?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh, your story just inspired me so much. I love it.
I love doing that. And I told my husband I want to travel. I haven't done enough traveling, and that's something important to me. And doing and going to women's events, that's what's important to me. So he went out and bought a fifth wheel camper. And this spring we did a 2-week vacation. I mean, we'd never done that. But over the years, I've learned to speak up better, speak up clearer, let my voice be heard. And once I did, I started getting actions. And I feel for your aunt when she was back in those early days. There were there have been generations of women that did that, and they've been longing to be free. Some of them reached a point like your aunt now, but many of them never did. And I at one time at a retreat, I imagined like a hole in the building, and all of our ancestors were looking down at us, and they were cheering us on because we've gone further than what they were able to. They went as far as they could bring it at their time, but now we're going further. And I love it when people now can pass it to their children at earlier points in life so that they come up knowing that they matter, that they have skills and talents and things to do, and that they can live a whole life with their heart's desires.
Oh yes, I love it. This is so fun. It's amazing. Like really, it's so so amazing. It's so inspiring as well, right? Like for
Yeah,
me, this is so so inspiring because like always knew that I wanted to do something that made me happy. I didn't always know how to make that happen, right?
right.
I was like, so I always did my best, right? I always like also like turning a little bit into the perfectionist that now
Yeah, we
I
all
call
been there.
now I call myself a recovered perfectionist, right?
Uh-huh, me too.
Now I'm just like putting it out there. And so now I feel very uncomfortable and I'm just like, I'm putting it out there. It's okay, and then it works, like it works better than the one that I really felt I nailed it, right? So I'm just like,
Right.
oh. And then I'm just like, oh, so many
Yeah.
years like being perfect, right? I had like I had bosses, they were amazing, but they were also like no widows on the presentations, right? So I'm like, but now it's something that I have inside of me. It's kind of like practice. So now I don't even look for it. I just do it, right?
You do it.
So
You gotta learn to listen to that inner voice or intuition, source, whatever you want to call it. You
mm,
gotta learn how to get really quiet and tap into there, and you'll be amazed what happens when you do that.
oh my gosh, I totally hear you, and I think so many people in the audience can relate to this. And if you don't relate to this yet, I invite to go and practice it and to listen to your body, right? Like your intuition, like your gut feeling. You know, the gut feeling that we all have.
Mhm.
Like sometimes we're like not supposed to do something, and then you go and do it anyways, and then you're like, "Why did I did that to myself?" That's your
Right,
intuition talking to you, right? Like that's your
right.
body saying, "Hey, alert, 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 alert." So let's start listening, to our body, to everything that is inside of you, us, right? And just be like, oh my gosh, I can ask for anything that I want. And then it shows up.
Yep.
It starts happening, right? When you really believe in something, it starts happening. And when you ask for it and you say, hey, I want to go and do a sculpting course in Italy, it will happen. Maybe not, it won't happen this summer, right? Because it's not aligned with your highest interest or not. Maybe it will. Maybe it will happen in the winter. But then, you start saying it, and then suddenly, also because AI is so powerful right now, you're gonna start seeing, I'm gonna start seeing, and you're gonna start seeing, Jill,
Right.
probably in your computer, all these ads on like sculpting courses in Italy.
Like, wow.
So then you it's actually scary, but at the same time it's great because then you keep seeing it and then you keep bringing this emotion and energy of like, oh my gosh, I really want to be like sculpting something and just like getting my hands with clay and building a
Yep.
body and like all these kind of things. And when you see these ads, you're gonna be like, oh my god, you're gonna get this feeling. But you could also get the feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to afford it. And
Ah, that
then it won't happen, right? But
happened.
if you,
Mhm.
when you see it, then you're like, oh my God, yeah, that
Yeah.
could be me. That's going to be me very soon. That's
Yeah.
going to be me.
Yeah. Feel the clay on your hands.
Yeah, exactly. And then, that's when we can utilize AI and all these ads and tracking and algorithms into our advantage, right?
Yeah. You
But,
got it.
but sometimes it's a little bit scary too, I have to say. But, you know,
Yeah,
yeah, let's see.
you have to be open to see it. I think when you see it, there's a lot of it around all the time, but when you're in that mindset to see it and to look for it, then you realize there was a lot more there. It's kind of like when you buy a new red car, everybody has a red car. As when you're
Oh, yes.
driving down, okay, the reticular activating device in your head is looking for it, and it'll keep searching and finding. And you're right, that all works along the same principles. So, but it's really
I,
neat.
I I love this example about the red car. It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's such a great example. I think everyone has lived an experience like this that,
it's,
suddenly you're like, I don't know if it has happened to you, but it has happened to me many, many times. There is one street next to my house that I pass by maybe twice or 3 or 4 times a day. And sometimes I am just like in a different mindset or whatever. And then I see something and I'm like, I've never seen these before. And I'm like, and it's not new. It's not like they
right.
just put it up. It's probably been there for years. And I've been passing through that street for years. Like
There's
many, like it's a street I have to pass by. Like there's, there's no other way. And I'm like, how is this possible? That I didn't see it. But really,
because
we only
now,
see like a piece.
yeah, now you were ready for it. Now you took a extra moment to look. Who knows what it is? I've had that happen too, but I think it's like this is going to sound silly. In the morning, I look at my Facebook, I look at my email, I look at Instagram. That's my wake up. And I was looking at Instagram this morning and I says, wow, there's an awful lot of interesting ones on here. Wow, they're all the things about that I like. Wow, this one's really cool. I've never had a day with so many. It isn't that Instagram changed, it was that I changed, that I was at a ready point, that my energy had changed, that I was getting more specific about what I wanted. And it was I didn't wanna stop because it's like you said, it's like even getting this conversation with you. I wanna do retreats. I wanna do retreats around the world. So what do I get? I find a retreat teacher, who's, coming from Mexico and goes around the world all the time. So the more specific, the more you live in that in the present, the more you draw in and the
Uh,
greater possibilities happen.
I totally agree. Like I have so many clients that come through and they're like, Lainey, I wish I met you many years before ago. So like, I could have skipped that learning curve and, like imagine where I would be. And I'm like, no, you met me exactly at the point where you were supposed to meet me, right?
Yep, yep, you
And
got it.
there are no coincidences.
No,
It was the exact right time. You had to learn those things. I couldn't take you through it and then like get you job. You would have still learned them. Now
right,
you're ready to meet me. Now
right.
you're ready to scale. Right
Yep,
now you're ready to have these conversations and listen to what I have to say. Before
yeah.
it was you probably weren't, and
You
it's
you're
okay.
you're absolutely right. Yeah, my retreats came about from my own learning. I had gone through a lot of things, and I won't go into them today because it isn't important to even talk about them. But I learned so much, and I kept putting it in and putting it in and putting it in. Finally, I said, I can't hold anymore. I got to start letting this out and sharing it with other people. And that was the foundation of my retreats. And I keep learning, so I keep growing and giving. So
I love it. I'm launching very soon a retreat in Mexico. It's called Back to Being, and it's really all about coming back into the present moment, coming back into our body, listening to our body. And it's for all women entrepreneurs or men. I don't mind, but 95% of the people who attend retreats are women. But it doesn't really, like, I have no bias. If you need it, you come, and then everyone is welcome. But it's really about coming back to who you are and taking the time to just be present and just be who you are, right? And then with this, allowing creativity to come. When you are your own business person, right? Your own business owner, you're your CEO, your BA, you're your audio, you are your editor, you are your content manager, you're your social media manager, you're like everything in one. There's so much stress because we are the ones who put our own ruler, right? We are the ones measuring, and then we become harsh on ourselves as our, because
Oh, yes.
you have like, I have to make this amount of money, I have to make this, I have to do this, I have to reach 10,000 followers, I have to so much stress. And then what happens? You end up most of the times burning out. I almost burned out like a couple of months ago. Like, I had to cancel all my pre-podcast interviews, and then I had to cancel all my podcast recordings, and I had to cancel like 95% of everything that I had, because I was just like, this is not serving me. I am not enjoying it. Why am I doing it? And I was like, I need a break. And I
Right.
took it. And then from there, the inspiration for this retreat came, and I'm so excited for it because it's just like, I am creating a retreat with the things that I would love to have on a retreat. Like, it's a
Absolutely.
retreat for me. You know what
You
I mean?
got it.
It's a retreat
Yeah.
for me and for people like
It
me,
could
right?
be. Yep.
That are business owners that need to take a time for themselves, but they also want to do it in a place that is nurturing and contained, and it's not just a holiday to the beach, right? Like, there is
Right.
something more. Like, there is magic that is gonna happen, right? Like, I
You
work a
got
lot
it.
with sound, and like all this kind of like spaces where you can really drop into the body and like
Oh.
allow it for it to come. I'm so excited. I'm just like, oh my god, yeah.
You're getting me wound up. That sounds amazing. Yeah.
I'll send you an
And
invite, so maybe you want to come to Mexico, and there now that you
uh,
want to now that you have this focus on traveling more.
well, okay, we'll see what happens. It's amazing. But I did another podcast for someone else this week, and this is kind of new territory. I've done it some, but not. It's starting to be a little more. And she was listening to me. She says, "You just went inside of yourself and listened to what you want, and it comes out easy." And she just says, "You're just being you, and you're not fighting it anymore. And you don't have to do 90 million things. If doing one thing really makes you happy, do one thing. You don't have to burn out." And I think everybody should have one mental breakdown in their lifetime. The second one's pretty stinky, so don't do that. But sometimes it helps you. Sometimes it helps you to well, I say that a little tongue in cheek, but you have to let go of your parents' rules. There's a point in your life where you say, "No, I'm not doing it their way. This is my house. This is what I want to do, my family, my life." And then, you learn things, and then you can say, "Now, where do I want to spend? What do I want to invest my life in? What do I want to be doing?" And as you
I
get a
love
little
this.
and as you get a little older, you don't need to worry what other people think. They may not like you. They may think you're nuts. That's up to them. That's your choice. I'm going to keep going. And if somebody likes me, then I'll draw them in, and it'll be fine.
Oh, I
So,
think this is an absolutely beautiful way to end our conversation because it's so powerful. I don't want to like go anywhere else. Like, this is so, so powerful. I love it. I'm so grateful to have had you here today and to really hear like how actually everything, it's so interesting. Like, everything that you've done, like, forget about like planning retreats since 1997. That is absolutely amazing on its own. It's all about how you did everything because you were listening to what you wanted, right? You had this need to be with more women because you were surrounded by men. So you created it, you made it a reality. And then from there it grew, and then you had a women's circle, and then you got other people to like really see what were their talents and how they could do more than what they thought they could do, right? Like you empower them. And I don't really love the word empowered, but I'm not gonna go into that conversation now. But you really took them into the next level. And now like that you're retired, that you keep doing this, and now you moved it into the digital world. So you are evolving and you're following your heart. But with that, you're creating this amazing impact in other people. And it's such an amazing thing. And it's all about listening to what you really want to do and then doing it.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your time. Jill, if someone wants to find you, how could they do that?
Well, one of the two easiest ways, you can send me a message on Messenger for Jill McCarthy, or my email address is mmccar, the numeral 1, at twcny.rr.com. And I love to write responses, so don't hesitate at all. And I can point you in a direction that whatever area of interest or that you have. So
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Jill. I'm going to drop all this information on the caption of the podcast. So don't worry, you don't have to write down everything that she just said. You can just go and find the links below. So I think that's going to be absolutely amazing. And I am so happy, and I really enjoyed this conversation. It went in like this amazing, amazing direction that I was not like, honestly, I always come without expectations, but I was not expecting it. I thought we were going to be more into like technical stuff. So it was such an amazing and juicy conversation. So make sure you follow Jill and follow her path and listen to her podcast. Like I'm going to drop down the information about her podcast. Okay. So like also like
sounds
make
great.
sure you listen to her podcast. And thank you so much for joining us today in this another episode. And I'm so happy to have you all here. And please send us a comment if you really like this episode. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, what a great episode. If you like our podcast, How to Run Profitable Retreats, leave us a review and share it with a friend.